Today I'm just going to be taking you through the rule out document and showing you sort of the anatomy of the document and how to use it. This is going to be sort of your comprehensive resource for adding a diagnosis to your report using the template that we're currently going by. So just to start, I'm going to go through a tutorial of how to insert the diagnosis into your report, and I'm also going to give you the rundown on all of the resources that are available in this document. So first things first, we just have some instructions up top. We have shortcuts, which I'll get back to in a moment, some resources for you, and then some more instructions on how to navigate the table of contents. So I'm going to get back to the table of contents in a moment. But let's just say, for the sake of this tutorial, that I'm going to use a commonly used diagnosis, so ADHD combined type. So to put this into my report, essentially what I would do is I would find it here in the shortcuts or in the table of contents if you don't see it here. I would just click it, click here, and it's going to take me right to it. So as you can see, the majority of the form is already filled out, and you have some specifiers that you need to update, but essentially the criteria are there, and it's ready to be copied into the report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the entire table. I'm going to be very careful not to miss out on this little cell right here, because that is our ICD code and that is very important. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this entire table, Control C, and I'm going to come over to my little sample report here. So this is just a sample report, and where it says summary and recommendations, I'm going to go ahead and paste that diagnosis card right in there. So now you can see you're going to have to do a little bit of work here. You're going to have to indicate the severity. So let's say that the severity here, we're just going to say it's mild. We're going to make sure that's a size 9, mild. Here in the measures section, you're going to want to make sure that you're only including the measures that were used for this specific case. So if you didn't use the Conners for this case, you're going to remove it, and so on and so forth. So moving down to key criteria. Not all of the diagnoses will have these check boxes, but the ones that do require you to do a little bit of extra work. You're going to want to look at the supporting documents, all the different measures that were done, and identify the symptoms that this individual is presenting with. So we would just select the ones that they meet the criteria for. So for example here, I selected makes careless mistakes, difficulty sustaining attention, not listening when spoken to, but maybe they don't have a hard time organizing tasks, so I wouldn't select that one. So it gives you an idea of which symptoms are present and which ones are not present. Down here in the supporting evidence section, I would give a little bit of context using the behavioral observations, using parent reports, the intake, and that would just give a little bit of information on why this diagnosis is relevant and support the criteria that are, support and elaborate on the criteria selected above. In the case of ADHD combined type, we do not have to modify the ICD code. It's just a stagnant code for the combined type presentation, but there are some disorders that you would have to modify this ICD code based on the severity, based on the status of remission. So you would want to be mindful of that. Coming back to the rule outs over here, I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the anatomy of the whole thing. So going back to the top, like I said before, we have shortcuts here. These will take you, like I said, to the disorders. We also have some resources. So if you click here, it takes you to the DSM, which also has bookmarks, very helpful. And if you click here, it takes you to my DSM overview, which is a resource that I've created that includes criteria simplified and differential diagnoses for all of the DSM diagnoses, with the exception of Z codes. So if you scroll through here, you'll see that there's, it goes in order, just the way you would see it in the DSM. And we have lots of all the criteria here. Some of the these tables here, like for the ICD codes and some of the more important differentials, are actually included already in the rule out document. So you wouldn't actually have to come to this document to reference them, but they're always here if you need them. If you're having any difficulty trying to differentiate between diagnoses, this is a really good resource because it sort of just simplifies all of these differentials that are in the DSM, and it's available to you online. There's also another way that you can access this same document, and I'll show that to you now. So I'm going to toggle down here to anxiety disorders. So if I'm going to use the table of contents, you can see everything here is separated by section. The main sections will be in bold, and then the individual diagnoses will be down here in the regular text. So if I go down here to anxiety disorders, it's going to take me to the top of the category. Something that's really helpful that I've done here is if you actually click on the title of the section and you click this document here, it will take you to that document that I showed you earlier, just the anxiety disorders. So you don't actually have to scroll through the entire document to find them, and it just makes it much easier. And if you look over here on this side, you would just toggle to this symbol right here to show the outline. You can also see all of the different diagnoses, and by clicking them, it will take you to that section. So now going back over here, just some things to be mindful of. Just paying attention, of course, to the scope of the diagnosis. So over here, we've tried to make it pretty comprehensive in the sense that we will have comments on the required criteria. So for example, generalized anxiety disorder, there are 3 of these that are required for diagnosis. So these are all just things to keep in mind when you're making a diagnosis. Something else that's important to keep in mind, if you notice that there's two disorders that are duplicated, like right here with separation anxiety disorder, there are differences in the criteria when we're looking at adults and when we're looking at children. So instead of making you go through and articulate those differences, I've gone ahead and just done it for you. So you would just copy and paste the appropriate table based on the age. And that's pretty much all I have to go through on here. Of course, there's some resources that are very helpful, the ICD codes, like I said. So everything is in here, and I hope that it's helpful.